Howdy partners, and welcome to Releases Roundup. I am your host Mike B, and this is the first of our monthly series of shows that will be looking back over a month's releases. This huge smorgasbord of excitement, all these new cardboard delights, some of which you may not have known about. So this is a one-stop shop to have a peek at, to see what came out in the month of July, and maybe pick something that takes your fancy. So without further ado, let's saddle up, let's roar our hide, and let's get our booty out there, and other colloquialisms to do with cowboys and stuff. Let's go on with it. Yeah! So first up was Keyforge Mass Mutation. This is, I think, is the third iteration of the Keyforge base decks and stuff. What you'll get here is what came out was a base set, a starter set, which give you enough for a couple of decks and the tokens and stuff you needed to start playing Keyforge, and then actually a couple of individual decks that you could pick up and to play the game. So Keyforge Mass Mutation, and for those of you obviously huge Keyforge fans, then I'm sure this is more of the same goodness, and for those not yet into the Keyforge, then maybe this is a good jumping off point. Next up was Cult Super Express, which was Cult Express, but in a slimmed down, shrunk down version with a suitably shrunk down RRP on it. So for about £15 you can pick that up for a 15-minute version of that now classic game. Next up was Top Gun strategy game based on the 80s movie. This is a game which allowed you to not only hone your volleyball skills, but also your fighter jet flying. 2 to 4 players, just under about the 20 quid mark. Maybe worth a punt. Next up was Bermuda Pirates for RRP of $24.99, 2 to 4 players. Dexterity and memory game where you make your way around the hidden whirlpools and save treasures and stuff. Pirates. Fight against pirates. That. One of the ones that got me most excited is a re-release. It's the second edition of Lewis and Clark The Expedition, a cracking game, really solid design of worker placement, but a race game, lots of just and card management and multi-use cards, lots of good stuff going on in there. It's a really cracking game. It's a shame it's been out of print. We now get a second edition, and for me personally, it's absolutely should be top of your agenda to pick one of these up. The artwork is fantastic by Vincent Dutray. The gameplay is really good. It's a solid, good thinky design. I believe the second edition has got revised rules. Aside from that, everything else is pretty much as it is as far as I'm aware. But yes, comes highly recommended by me, and it will be my pick for the month of July, is Lewis and Clark The Expedition. And we have Solar Storm, hot off its Kickstarter funding. This one plays 1 to 4 players. It is about 60-minute playtime. It's kind of a pandemic-ish light cooperative game of you trying to stop your spaceship plummeting into a sun. The big one, probably sold out now, but you can track it down, was the Shadowed Paths, which is the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth first big box expansion, coming to you for quite a sizable $74.99 RRP. Includes more minis and obviously more campaign, lots of unexciting things in there. Then we've got Towers of London and Papillion, not, I believe, based on the Steve McQueen movie. Then the Anti-Up Western Legends expansion, Telestrations Upside Down, slimmed down version of Telestrations, plays in 20 minutes. Love Telestrations, great game. Not sure about that one. Super Cats, no idea. Plays 2 to 6 players, 15 minutes. No clue. Telestrations After Dark, it's Telestrations but after dark. Scooby-Doo! Escape from the Haunted Mansion, a Coded Chronicles game. So this is a new series of games. They're going to be producing a Shining version as well. Kind of an escape room feel of a game. We like Scooby-Doo. There's a new Scoob cartoon. Maybe have a look at that. Some other bits and pieces that came out. We had Frozen 2 Double, if that's your thing. So about mid-July we got Munchkin Dungeon, which is hot off the Kickstarter from Cool Mini or Not. It takes the Steve Jackson card game, which by some is loved, by others is hated, and put it into more of a board style of design of game with miniatures and other stuff. If you didn't back on the Kickstarter, or if you're mildly interested, then it might be one to have a look at in a big box of plasticky goodness. Undaunted North Africa is one that popped out just about mid-July. It is a follow-up to the other Undaunted games. I think Normandy was one of them. They essentially take historical battle moments and allow you to reenact them and play them through as a 2-player games. They've proved very popular, especially during lockdown. For those sat at home with their significant others or people they can cajole all into playing it, and not one I've personally played myself, but I do hear a lot of buzz, so if you can track it down, that might be something worth having a look at. Last little bit for the end of this week was Mazo, which is a Kickstarter coming through. It's a Dudes of the Map sort of, but in Aztec. It's a base set, plays 1 to 4. There's also a heap of expansions that obviously came as part of the Kickstarter, so that does tot up in the money. Maybe worth a look if you're a fan of that. And then we run into the last little bit of a week of July, which is just happening now. So we've got Marvel Flux, if you're a fan of Flux, plays 2 to 6. 20 quid. If that's your thing, then there's Marvel Flux. One fresh from Kickstarter is Gladiators, Blood and Sand from UK designer team. It's a cool little sort of gladiator combat game using card-based mechanisms. You're playing cards to fight each other in the arena. Think a bit Spartacus, but card-based. A lot of fun. That's well worth a look if you're in any way interested in the theme and what that's doing. Then we've got Mamart, which is art-based game, 2 to 5. Fairly reasonable priced, just 20 quid-ish, well, below £20 in fact. Doesn't look terribly enthralling, but maybe have a glance if the theming is anything of interest to you. Then we got Frankie's Rock and Vegas come out, which is kind of Yahtzee with different dice and looks atrocious, so I would stay away from that. Then we have Marco Polo 2, which by all accounts looks like Marco Polo 1.5. It's a worker placement game, Euro, some dice chucked in there as well. If you play the original game, there may be something that interests you in this. If you don't own the original, then by all accounts, this might be the way to go if you're enticed by that. Bit of Marco Polo-ish. Then probably the two big things coming up in the next month that are interest to me or might be interest to you. There's the Eclipse 2nd edition, which obviously was originally on Kickstarter. It's quite a large box with a significant price attached to it. But if you're a fan of Eclipse or have always been tantalized by the idea of it, this probably looks like the definitive version to own. I'm on the fence because I'm a bit of a TI4 fan, but we'll see. And then of course we've got Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, which essentially takes Gloomhaven and shrinks it down into an itty bitty box and allows us to play 1 to 4 players in a much more constrained, smaller scenario thing, but to get that flavour of Gloomhaven. It does look very cool. It's getting a lot of hot buzz, some cool mechanisms and how they're using the rulebook as also the tile layout thing. Getting a lot of buzz. Looks cool. I am enticed because I'm a fan of Gloomhaven. So yes, maybe that might be one to look at. Or if the Gloomhaven is terrifying to you, then maybe jumping in the small box to get a taster to see if it is really for you. So then, that is us for the releases of July. However, let's have a quick glance at Kickstarter. So I'm going to look at a few projects which are currently running at the moment as you watch this video, and stuff that you can still jump on and kickstart if that's of interest to you. These are all ones that have kind of jumped out at me, so let's start with that. First up is Whale Riders from Rainer Knizia and artist Vincent Dutray. It looks gorgeous. It's a very reasonable price on it. It's got about 8 days left to run at this point in time. It is kind of a race game, but you're also selling components of bits and pieces and trading along the way. Looks kind of cool. Fairly decent face for Grail Games. A good price on it. It might be something that is interest to you. It does look stunning. Then we have a big box of plastic and goodness and stuff. So it's Perseverance from Mindclash Games. The guys have bought us Tricurion and Anachrony. It's that style of game again. It's you on an unforgiving planet world, building a settlement, but the game has a unique method in that the first part of the game you can play is you setting the settlement and surviving against the hordes of killer dinos are rampaging, and then you can play either as campaign mode or play it separately. Is a second part of the game where you're kind of running your settlement, so more of an economic based game. It's got dice in it, it's got miniatures, it's got all the Mindclash oomph that you would expect. It comes with a hefty price tag. It does look kind of cool. If the theme or what that's doing, or you're a fan of Mindclash, then that's probably maybe one you're going to go and side towards. The big box Kickstarter for the month. And then what's really interested me in is kind of my pick of Kickstarter at the moment is the Night Cage. It is a horror cooperative tile laying game set in a dark dungeon where essentially as you move through the dungeon you place tiles around you as your light is emitting just a few passages you can see. You and your guys are trying to sneak through this labyrinth corridors in the dark without bumping into anything horrible and find the exit. Feels a little Subterra-ish, but this looks like actually a really cool mechanism, and that you're only ever seeing the tracks of where you are at that point in time. It really looks cool, relatively reasonably priced, and it just looks a bit different and an interesting theme and mechanisms. I kind of like how this one looks and the aesthetics of it. bit. Definitely one I would say have a look at. It looks just a bit different and cool. And then finally, I've got Mantis Falls, which is a social deduction, traitory game, but it plays from either 2 to 3 players. So it's a very low player count for social deduction game, yet it's getting some buzz that it works really well. I love social deduction games. I don't play many with 2 or 3, and the idea of it kind of seems strange, but this is kind of getting the buzz and it looking like it does do what it does. So if you're in couples and you only play as 2, then this might be the opportunity for you to get a bit of that social deduction fun with you and your significant other. Thanks for tuning in. I have been Mike B. This has been Releases Roundup, and that was July. Lovely. We'll be back again. I'll be back in August with some more of this and some more of the other. In the time being, there's obviously lots of videos around here. Feel free to indulge yourself in some of the other video delights that are here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And above all else, remember rule number 1. Oh yes. And see you soon.